So Resident Evil Requiem was indeed better than Pragmata. It's very interesting. As much as I hated Requiem and I have a ton of problems with it, at the very least, it had like good parts to it that made it like honestly worth playing. Like I honestly kind of like greatly recommend Requiem just for like the good parts that it does really, really well. In hopes that we'll get like future installments that like, feature Grace, retire Leon permanently, and just like, go into a glorious new era of Resident Evil, right? I loved Resident Evil Requiem in certain respects. So to go from that to Pragmata was very, very interesting because Pragmata was something I had no interest in. I did not want to play this thing. If it wasn't for like the Nintendo Switch 2 version getting announced, I would not have bought it. It was one of those things where I'm just like, well, if it's coming out on Switch 2, if it's a major AAA game from Capcom, like what? And I liked Resident Evil Requiem as much as I did. Why don't I go out and play Pragmata? So I went out, I bought this thing, I played it for like an hour, and I was just like, yeah, this is complete slop. Okay. You have none of the creativity in Requiem. You have none of the charm. You have none of the soul, right? Like, Pragmata is just an overproduced mess, okay, by people who I think were just given way too much budget and don't really seem interested in making an actual video game. Okay, Pragmata just doesn't seem as if, like, the core concept was very well thought out at all. Like, I don't understand, like, how this thing ever got off the ground, other than like maybe Capcom like trying to ape off The Last of Us. Like that's kind of my opinion on it. Like looking at this game and its history and like how this was a PlayStation exclusive originally, like it feels like Capcom gave them a ton of money to produce a Lolicon bait character, and they did it, but they forgot to produce an actual video game. So what's interesting about this is that the accusations being lobbied at Pragmata right now is that it is lolicon pandering, it is for pedophiles, it is sexualizing the little girl. I think 100% that can be confirmed, because when you look at like other child characters in other games, Pauline and Emily from Requiem, like you didn't see anybody sexualizing them. Like it wasn't really a thing, okay? Like because those characters weren't really promoted to that audience. They understood like what to do to make them like kid-friendly characters. They understood like what how to prevent that from being an issue, right? They were just like actual kids, okay, in that sense. They were presented as like fun, unique characters with their like own roles to play in the story and like their unique relationships with the protagonist, right? Like Emily, like Grace going to such great lengths to protect Emily was like heart-wrenching. Way better than anything in Pragmata, by the way. It was like, Donkey Kong and Pauline, seeing them get closer and like become friends. Like, when Pauline starts becoming more confident and starts like doing the chess thing, it's like she's like an actual kid. You know what I mean? Like, Diana is not an actual child. And some people would argue that's the point, is that she's actually an android. But like at the same time, like, when you look at her design, when you look at how she acts, when you look at, like, what she says, like, what you get is this weird, artificial, like, lolicon pandering character. Where, like, she's a character that's defined exclusively by her relationship with her, like, with the male character. And that's, like, the difference, I think. Because when you have Emily, you establish her initial personality, her initial behavior, and her initial characteristics, right? And then you slowly start becoming more attached to her over time. Pauline, has like all these goals and ambitions and like interests outside of Donkey Kong. But Diana, like her thing is that she doesn't really do anything other than have cutesy conversations with the protagonist Hugh. Like this game literally has dating mechanics in it, where like you talk to her and she starts like becoming more attached to you. Like you can see like the musical note things happening. Like again, it's pedophile pandering. Like it absolutely is. And the problem with this is that a lot of people are in denial about this. They're trying to say that like this is perfectly normal and there's nothing wrong with it. You're the weird one for looking too much into it. This is very typical like pedophile tactics of like trying to gaslight you into being concerned about the way that like children are presented in media to their like adult audience. You know what I mean? Like again, like, oh man, who cares if Dan Schneider is like raping child actors on the set? Like, at least we got a new episode of iCarly this week. You know, that's the mentality. Okay, people making excuses for their behaviors and for what's happening to kids based on like certain unrelated factors. Like, the reality is there's no justifying this under any circumstances, okay? People should have been, like, concerned about this, you know, the instant we saw her design. And I saw some people, like, bring this up. I did see some people see that she looked like a very, like, Lolicon bait character. But, like, yeah, now that the game's out, now that we've actually played it, like, I am very comfortable in saying this, that I do think she can be considered a Lolicon. Like, I do think, unironically, you are going to be seeing, like, people say that, like, it's perfectly fine to, like, to be into this chick because she's not actually human and because, like, she's actually, like, of legal age, right? Like, well, she was built, like, 18 years ago. Like, again, you're going to be seeing a lot of that shit, I think, in the coming weeks. Like I'm already seeing it on, like, 4chan, on threads like that. It's kind of like the defining characteristic of the game now. And you're even seeing people saying that, like, Capcom hasn't been, like, sexualizing her enough. You know, it's positively disgusting. Like, it is ridiculous how the community is bending over backwards to try and justify this pedophilia. Desperately trying to justify it and normalizing it for their own sick desires. It's ridiculous. And of course, this is not a condemnation for, like, child characters being in games. Like I said, like, you know, Pauline and Emily in Resident Evil Requiem were great. You know, like, both of them were, like, really likable characters that had a lot of things to offer and things to contribute. Diana is not like that. You know, as a concept, the entire purpose of Pragmata is about this little girl, okay? You know, this little girl who is obsessed with you. You know, this little girl who will talk to you about anything. Like, it's very, very clearly pedophilic in nature. And it's something that we do have to call out and address. Honestly, I would go so far as to say that, like, this game probably should never have been made, honestly. Like, not just because it's a bad game, but because of, like, the angle they tried to go with it and because of just, like, how they've been presenting it to the audience. To me, this is something that, like, I do think we need to be, like, more vocal about going forward. Games like this simply should not be allowed to exist.